So it's essentially I want to talk about the chakras, the energy world, and the process in yoga of working with prana and energy through breath and what people refer to as breath work. But in pranayama yoga, it's beyond the breath; it's into the prana. Pranayama yoga is about controlling the prana, the energy in your system. And this brings it back into the world of chakras, which is an explanation, kind of like if you know what a schematic is in electronics, it's a wiring diagram of how the gadget works, how the connections are made. The chakra yoga system goes into an elaborate understanding of how the energy wheels, which are quantum fields in more modern terminology, how this is connected to our nervous system and how through the nervous system it's connecting to glands and organs along in our body that are in charge of our body chemistry, the whole hormonal system, which is regulating everything in our body. Everything that happens is essentially chemically based. Body chemistry, brain chemistry. So learning more about this chemistry and the neurological link and how the energy is really coming from the mind ultimately. The directions of when you want to do something, you decide to do something and the impulses go through the nervous system. There's a certain number of things we do which are conscious, we decide, we direct, and there's a 90% that is subconscious. That goes into the programs that are in our subconscious mind that make your heartbeat normally, make the breathing. In yoga, you kind of step into that one. Controls your digestive system, elimination, body metabolism of all the cells, everything. It's all self-regulating. With biofeedback coming from the cells to the brain is adjusting according to the temperature, according to what you're doing. And this is an ongoing process. It's all working through the energetic system, which we refer to as prana in yoga. And that prana divides into different types. It's all energy, but it works at different frequencies of energy, different number of impulses per second going to different glands and organs. So the understanding of this is quite ancient and elaborate and very sophisticated as far as what this old yogic system knew about the glands, the organs, the immediate link from the chakra energies to the endocrine glands is the first thing, then to the other organs and to all the other cells in the body. There was a very profound understanding there. This link to the endocrine system is what governs whether you're healthy or not, whether everything is functioning or not, how to make it function better. All part of an elaborate system which considers the mind-body connection. And if you've read old books on yoga, they were saying mind over matter is one of the foundations of the yogic world. That's maybe taken out of modern books because corporations like Yoga Alliance have reduced yoga to a physical fitness program, which is it's way beyond that, really. In my research over the years, I've found, I keep looking at all the modern research, and what I've been found and discovered is that there's this area of the brain where the pituitary is sitting and the hypothalamus is above that. And in this area, the thoughts you are thinking get translated into molecules. These are called neuropeptides. And these molecules contain the vibration of the thought that you're having. So if it's a good and a happy thought, the hormones produced, the neuropeptides, will have a nice vibration, a nice frequency. They will create nice feelings in your body, and they will create a nice state of health. If you're having ongoing negative thoughts, you're going to be producing negative chemistry in your brain, which is going to come down to all these endocrine glands and produce hormones that are a little off balance, a little inadequate. So coming to an understanding of how this system works and how your mind influences and how to take your mind and bring the influences into a positive place is all part of the yogic educational system. So breathing, pranayama yoga, which, as I said, it means energy control. It doesn't mean respiration in the English way of thinking about it. Although we look at the dual function of when you are breathing, you're bringing oxygen into the lungs, from the lungs to the blood system, into the blood, it's distributed throughout the body. We have roughly 50 trillion cells in the average human body. Every one of them needs oxygen whenever they're functioning. So that's a lot of oxygen that you're using every day. When the cells use the oxygen, they put out carbon dioxide, which needs to be eliminated on your exhalation. So the in-breath brings in the oxygen, the exhalation gets rid of the CO2. This is our natural waste product. We do it all day long, every cell is producing this. This is one part of the breath. Now the prana side deals with your nose and the prana. What is prana? It's a mystical term. People think, oh, it's this thing that yogis believe in. The Chinese believe in qi, an energy that goes through the meridians, etc. These ancient cultures knew about energy. More than...
Say it again.
These ancient cultures knew about energy. Modern culture knows about energy in electronics and gadgets and things that they still have not looked at. Us. We also run on energy. If you take the energy out of your body, it's dead. It's dead immediately. If you take the oxygen out of your body and you don't breathe for a while, you're dead in several minutes. But the link with the prana is immediate. As soon as the energy stops flowing, everything stops, including your heart, your brain, and your body. So what I'm saying about this energy world is it's quite important to know about it, to know not just about it, but how to work with it. And this is what we do in pranayama yoga, learning how to breathe, first of all. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I realized through that long time, most people really don't know how to breathe completely or correctly. We're partially breathing. We have partial amount of the energy we need. Most people are living at an oxygen deficit, which means you don't actually have enough oxygen to keep your cells healthy. So you have an area of your body where there's not enough circulation, there's not enough oxygen in circulation, so the gland organ in that area is going to become diseased. And we're living in a society that has a lot of disease. If you look around and feel around and talk to people, everybody's got something wrong with them physiologically. Physical disease, it's rampant. There's over 60,000 known classified diseases in Western medicine. In yoga, there's only one. It's called disease. Either you're healthy or you're diseased. What I'm saying about just at the oxygen level, you have bad circulation in one area because your muscles are stressed about something or you're psychologically disturbed about something. The area that has bad circulation is going to automatically have less oxygen than other areas. And overall, you're living at an oxygen deficit. Normal people are. So you have gradual deterioration of everything in your body. The cells do not reproduce in a healthy way. The next generation is 1% less healthy than the last one, and this goes on until you end up in old age with every disease in the book, and you're just in a wheelchair waiting to die. We're not supposed to be that way. This is a created phenomenon by our lifestyle. So going back to level 2 of the prana. The prana is energy. Prana is a flow of electrons. It's exactly the same thing as electricity. It's what we're using in all our technology, and what we have failed to see is working through our nervous system. In the ancient yogic texts, the first book I picked up was actually not so ancient. It was written in the 1940s. And they talked about prana and the nose. When we inhale through the nose, we have what we call the sense of smell. This sense of smell is not only picking up smell. These are major blobs of nerve tissue and 50,000 nerve terminals in each nostril that are picking up the prana. The prana is extra electrons riding on the oxygen molecules, even on some of the nitrogen molecules. If you know about chemistry, an atom has a core with a proton and neutrons and an electron spinning around. Now the number of electrons varies, the size of the core changes, but out here in nature, where we have this symbiotic relationship with trees, they take our carbon dioxide, take the carbon, and give us back the oxygen. So when we're living in nature, we have this feedback, we have this relationship with the trees. Now the oxygen they give back to us has extra electrons. An oxygen molecule has about 8. Okay, it can hold 9, it can hold 10, and it can also have only 6 or 7. So this is a variable thing. When you're in nature and breathing the air that comes from the trees, it is charged with these extra electrons, which is electricity. It's a little electrical charge. This goes into the olfactory nerves, straight into the olfactory channel. It's a large nerve that goes straight into the back of your brain and comes in as electricity. When you have been trained in yoga practice and deep breathing, you can feel this. And it feels like an optimism, a kind of a high feeling of enthusiasm and optimism and positivity that motivates you to live and to do things. While you're doing this, your body has more oxygen, and your muscles have more oxygen to do with, and everything becomes healthier. So the most important aspect is the prana from the Eastern perspective of yoga. And if you have enough of this prana, your nervous system has enough energy. This energy gets distributed to different levels, different nerve groups in your body. Each one is connected to the field of energy itself, which is called the chakra. The chakra is just energy. It's a field of energy. Your nervous system is plugging into it and feeding into it and pulling out of it, like batteries. So these levels of whirlpooling energy have a certain frequency of energy. Each one is directing to, again, going down and out into the body through glands and organs and body functions. When the energy is enough, the gland, the organ, are going to be happy. It's just like when there's enough energy and I flick the switch and it goes to the lights go on and they're bright. If there's not enough energy, the lights get a little dim. That used to be a serious problem here on the island before. Every night after 6 o'clock, the lights would all go dim. There wasn't enough power for the whole island. That's been upgraded. But you can tell. Now with your body and all the glands and organs, if you have enough energy to keep everything functioning, the glands and organs are empowered by this prana. And if the cells in the gland and organ have enough oxygen, everything functions. This is the key to health. Everything in your body. The cells in your liver, the cells in your heart, the cells in your sex glands are all cells requiring the same basic nutrients, oxygen, and circulation to bring in the oxygen and to take away the carbon dioxide. This is the physiological side. The energetic side is having enough power to function. And this is in the mind-body connection. when you have had emotional traumas, when you had a bad childhood and you're suppressed and many things have happened. These traumas influence the nervous system. They're held as memories not just in your brain but connected to different parts of your body. And when you have that, the energy flow going to these places is restricted. You have a bad memory that you don't like to think about. The part of your brain that contains the memory is not going to allow the energy to circulate because it brings up the memory. If you don't want to think about it, it was a bad experience. So this bad experience inhibits the energy flow. Ultimately, the gland and organ at the other end of this energy flow is going to be deteriorated. It will end up with a problem in this gland, that organ. These are psychological traumas that have emotional responses, and it interferes with things in life. It interferes with your energy in the long term, with your whole health begins deteriorating. People who have had this trauma or that trauma will end up with this disease or that disease. It's all connected, it's all interrelated, and in the world of chakras, you can map out where the trauma is, where it's coming from, which gland or organ it's going to influence. This is all clearly laid out in this map, what I call the schematic of our human being. So we do breathing techniques in yoga that are going from essentially learning how to breathe correctly, breathing through your nose secondarily, and then there's breathing ratios, mathematics applied to the breath that will then send the energy to this part of the nervous system, to that part of the nervous system, to this chakra, to that gland, to this organ. This is an elaborate, sophisticated system of energy work. In my training and in my manuals, I have a breathing manual, book of breathing techniques. I have 72 breathing techniques that are done in sequence. First, learning how to breathe. Abdominal breath, middle section, upper section. Complete breath. Then complete breath, retentions, holding in, holding out. Breathing in for a count of 8, or breathing in for a count of 16. It's very mathematical. In fact, the universe is actually mathematical. So learning the mathematics of it and applying these breathing techniques, you can sweep through your system. You can bring up the traumas and the memories and the things that have blocked you here and there, that have closed you down to relationships or to experience or suppressed your drive to be creative or to live. And we've all gone through an educational system that suppresses us considerably, suppresses creativity and reduces us to just getting a good job, doing whatever someone else wants us to do, which is not a natural human thing. We all have our own drive. We have our own creativity. And this is suppressed for the sake of making us conform into good, productive consumers, which is what they call us now. We are consumers. Beyond that, we wouldn't have much purpose as far as the system is concerned. So in this field of yogic breathing, which is always and should be combined with movement and postures and meditation and concentration, it's all part of one big package. The art of breathing is how we start and sweep through, charge up the chakras, bring up the traumas, release them. And that's as simple as releasing your breath when you know how to do it. But you have to learn how to do these things. And then you become kind of in control of what your energy is doing, whether your glands and organs are functioning in balance, whether your hormones are cool and adjusted, whether you have vitality and inspiration, or whether you're blocked up and can't move forward with your life. One of the primary techniques that I learned and that we started with at the ashram in India was called Ekadasi. The term literally means 11 days. It takes 11 days to do one breathing technique. It gets progressively longer day by day. It's mathematical in nature. And because of the mathematics, it brings the energy into 3 parts of the nervous system. If you're familiar with yoga, we have Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna, 3 different branches of the nervous system, roughly correlating to Western anatomy of the sympathetic, parasympathetic, and central nervous system, roughly, but not exactly. So by moving the energy through one side, you're pushing the energy through to unblock things that have restricted. And these things come up in your memory. You start remembering things that you had long forgotten, things that happened to you when you were a child. You start feeling things that might have happened when you were in early childhood where you don't even have a memory, but there's an emotional reaction. When you were in the womb and your mother was having a hard time, it's registered in you. It's in your nervous system. The emotions your mother had are part of your development. So you won't even remember those things, but they will suppress your breathing. And that's how it works. This is how the damage occurs, is you don't want to feel these things, so you kind of suppress the breath, because the breath is what's making you feel everything. The less you breathe, the less you feel, until you stop breathing and you're dead. You don't feel anything in your body and mind. All connected. So this breathing technique, Ekadasi, that I mentioned, I've been teaching this for over 50 years, doing it myself for that long. I've done it hundreds of times at this point. So it's what we call a psychological detox. We do detox in yoga. We do a saltwater flush. We do fasting. We do different kind of diets, or fruit diet, juice diet, etc., for cleansing and purifying the body. Ekadasi is for detoxing your brain, your mind, and all the traumas and negative experiences you had, and you're maybe still holding on to. You're still thinking about a bad relationship you had. And this is going to influence the next relationship you have, because you enter every relationship with expectations that come from your past relationships. So learning to look back and overview these past relationships and see why this happened, and what was my part in this happening, where does my karma fit into this, and how do I pull out of this reaction and this repetitive cycle of bad relationships or bad health, or all of these things are understandable. We research them, explore them, and learn how to change situations physiologically, emotionally, psychologically, mentally. All part of the bigger picture of yoga. Anyone breathing? I know you're all breathing, kind of. But if you look at how you're breathing all day long, you'll realize it's really minimal. About 1/10 of your lungs is what you use. The other 9/10 is waiting. And if you understand physiology, your heart is pumping the blood over to your lungs to get oxygen, and then the blood goes back to the heart and it pumps it around the body to distribute that oxygen. So if you're using 1/10 of your lungs over here, and the blood is going over here, it's not going to get any oxygen. It goes back into circulation, oxygen deficit. And the cells that are down here waiting for their hit of oxygen, they're suffocating. The suffocation creates panic at the cellular level. The cells put out little neuropeptides, little chemistry that says, I'm suffocating. So if you have only 100 million of these, you start to feel anxiety and stress. It's physiological. And you can change it. Stop. Take 5 minutes. Take a few deep breaths. Anxiety goes down. Now I see this even in all the movies that are coming out. People say, hey, stop, take a deep breath. They finally figured something out. Simple enough. You don't need all the chemical drug suppressants that take down your anxiety. All you need to do, give your cells the oxygen they need, and they will put out different chemistry that makes you feel good instead of feeling stress, anxiety, tension, going into disease, pain, suffering. It's all in our control. And pranayama, which means energy control, is how we can control all of this, change situations, empower what we need to empower in our physiology, in our emotions, in our mental concepts, in our concentration. Now, take a deep breath. Feel if it's actually deep and how different it was from a couple of minutes ago when you were just listening and not breathing. You forget. Even learning how to breathe properly and doing it for a little bit, you walk out of here and then, oh, you notice last hour I forgot to breathe. During that time, you're going downhill, physiologically. And put that over a number of years, you go quite a bit downhill until you're old and suffering. There was an interesting report that I read in a magazine. I think it was called Psychology Today, back in the 80s. They had done a study of aging people. I know you've heard this story 25 times. They studied 100,000 aging people who are beyond 70 in America. This was done by the American Medical Association in conjunction with psychological things. And they realized that as people age, they breathe less and less. The older you get, the less you breathe until you stop. Your life ends. Now, having studied all this, at the end of the report, they said we could not determine whether the aging caused the lack of breathing or the shallow breathing caused the aging. So it's a double-edged sword. Chicken or the egg. But already being a yogi of many years, I said, aha, this is an important fact. And if you then apply deep breathing, you can retard the aging. So breathing became a bigger part. It was already a big part of my life. I just added a little bit more, a few more hours per day, more conscious of the breathing. And now at 73 years old, I feel the same as I did when I was 33 years old. I don't have any health issues. And I'm not planning it. I realize too, the planning on it and the fact that most people think, oh my God, I should be old. I'm getting old, I'm over 30. It's partly in your mind. When your mind gives up and starts thinking, I am getting old, your body will react. Sure, we will cooperate. Let's all get old together. And all the cells start doing the same thing. So the psychological detox, the ekadasi, which is a big part of the original training I had, it's part of the trainings that I do year after year, and I've been doing like yoga teachers trainings for years. I'm not doing it now to be yoga teachers. I'm doing it for people to master themselves. Because there's millions of yoga teachers in the world, but they don't know much about yoga. In fact, in most yoga teachers trainings, you learn very little about the breath. Less about the chakras. You learn anatomy, but not physiology, which doesn't help much. You can't change your anatomy, but your physiology, you can be in control. One more deep breath. You forgot again? Okay. I'm just going to run through a little bit of details of the chakras and the energy, the frequencies of the energies, the frequency of the prana that whirlpools around is different at each level. Now, in most yoga books, you will see, if you see a schematic or picture of the chakras, it looks like they're this way. It's because you're looking at a two-dimensional page. They're this way. Your spine is in the middle, and the chakras go around this way.
They're like a disc on horizontal.
It's a disc, yeah. Your spine is the middle, and the discs are at all these levels. They can spiral up. So people who learn chakras out of the book will think, oh, they're this way. But when you get into actually feeling them, and you're centered in your spine, and you're feeling this whirlpool, and it's the same as the planet Earth with a north-south axis, and the world is spinning at a 90 degree to that axis. This is a universal constant. It's in atoms, it's in molecules, it's in us, it's in the Earth, the solar system, and galaxies. Everything is electromagnetic. And the electromagnetics all follow the rules of magnetic and electron. So the electrons I talked about, the prana as electrons, is an electronic field. Electrons revolving around the spinal axis is your magnetic axis. And they're spinning around this way. They come out, the energy comes out into nerve groups. Nerve groups go to different glands and organs. In Muladhara chakra, the energy goes out into your muscles, into your sex glands to produce the hormones that are required for, not just for sex, but like even women have testosterone, which is what makes your muscles grow and your body solidify and hold itself together. Second chakra is connected to body fluid. It's the water element, connected to your kidneys, adrenal glands that produce adrenaline that give you motivation and power. Third chakra is connected to your digestive system, producing the enzyme, the 3,000 or 4,000 different enzymes that are required for digestion, and then insulin and glucagon, which are regulating your blood sugar, releasing blood sugar and getting it into the cells. The hormones produced. Fourth chakra, one of the most dysfunctional, in charge of your immune system. In most people, it's hardly working at all. Partly because of our lifestyle, partly because it's connected to the lungs. The thymus gland is what produces thymosin that activates the white blood cells. And it's empowered by midsection breath, which many people don't do at all. And in charge of the autoimmune system, the production of white blood cells, the education of white blood cells, which takes place in the thymus and then goes into the spleen later on in different parts. So when that is functioning, your body will produce an antibody for anything within 24 hours. Any new variant, any virus, any bacteria, within 24 hours, if you are a yogi and practicing yoga, you have created an antibody for whatever has entered your system. In most people, this is not working. It takes weeks for most people to produce an antibody for something new. But that's fine, because it takes years for the pharmaceutical corporation to do it. So you're still far ahead.
The key is to become yogis.
Yeah, have a happy, healthy life, which is becoming rare out there in the world. Okay, so, I mean, there's a lot more. The study of the chakras takes a while. It's not simple. I'm simply running through some really basic things. Fifth chakra is connected to your voice, to the thyroid and parathyroid glands, to your body metabolism, how fast and what your temperature is, all those things. The sixth chakra, you're up into this area that I mentioned, the pituitary, the hypothalamus, where you are putting together your picture of the world and where your thoughts are influencing your brain chemistry, going down to your body chemistry. So an important part to be controlling, and this is where we control. Ajna chakra is in the forebrain. It's where we make our decisions. And if our decisions are based on fear and worry, you're going to have some pretty negative chemistry. If it's based on empowerment, enthusiasm, and infinite possibilities, you're in a good place. And this is what modern science has been trying to tell us for 100 years. That the world is not solid and real. It's much more flexible, it's much more chemical, it's much more energetic. And quantum physics is pointing very directly at possibilities. The electromagnetic energy has the possibilities of forming into atoms and molecules. And your mind is in charge of what those possibilities are. So if your mind has fears, the possibilities are going to be not so good. So clearing out of the mind is an important part. So we have our 6 chakras: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and mind. The 3 higher chakras are out in space. When you leave your body, you'll find your way out there. You'll be launched out there. 7, 8, and 9 are the universal chakras: consciousness and universal reality. So you don't need to study those too much to be in charge of your health or to undo your past traumas. Yeah, somewhat. Take another breath. You guys have any questions on anything so far? One?
Not yet.
Not yet. So what I have seen, I've done 25 years of normal, not so normal yoga teacher trainings. It's not so normal because I go way beyond the asanas into this whole study of the chakras. But in that time, I have seen many people come with a lot of trauma. I was shocked at first because I had a pretty easygoing, healthy life, good childhood, wonderful parents, etc. I didn't know that some people hated their parents. Had all kinds of reservations, had been beat up or sexually abused. And over the years, I started to realize, well, there's been a lot of shit hitting the fan out there. And people who had these experiences can't really move forward into an exploration of the chakras, because as soon as you start going into the energy world, there's emotional reactions of fear and trauma and pain. And all of this needs to be out of the way before you can get into a free-flowing prana energy and go into the exploration of these energy fields, the quantum fields of the chakras. So it's a very important step to unblock, to patch up, to understand the past. What has happened to you? Why did it happen? And that involves looking at anything from a bad relationship to the abuse you may have suffered when you were a child. Looking at, well, why did that happen? And looking back to the next generation, the generation before, where the parents who abused you, well, they were beat up when they were kids. And they were beat up because their parents. It goes on from generation to generation until you stop it and say, whoa, I'm not going to repeat this kind of behavior with my children. You can stop these things. But you have to understand that people are not responsible. Very often, people are not conscious. They're going through subconscious reactions. If you piss them off and they pick up a stick and they hit you, because it's a reaction programmed into you that is done without consciousness, without choice, really. And this is part of the karmic wheel of living our past karma, of repeating the patterns that we inherited from the schools we went to, from the parents, from neighbors, from abusive uncles or older brothers or whatever it was. So these things stand in the way of our development, of our being present in the moment and making conscious decisions with a clear perception of what's going on. If you have looked into a study of yoga and such things as the Yoga Sutras, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he defines yoga as stopping these modifications of the mind. is how you achieve yoga. And the modifications of the mind are these subconscious patterns of behavior, subconscious projections. We enter a situation that looks a little bit like a situation we had last year where we got hurt. So we anticipate this is going to be painful and we back off. We go into a relationship and we see a little trigger that we saw in another relationship where we were beat up and abused or raped or something, and we go into it with fear and we misjudge everything in the present because of our past experiences. So Ekadasi is about looking at all of our past experiences and clarifying what happened, why it happened, and do we want this to happen again, or can we just change our perception and our reaction to those things? It's a powerful technique that clears the path so that you can move into your own future. Otherwise, you're dragging your past in to influence your perception, and you keep just repeating the same thing. In the sutras, the Yoga Sutras, the modifications of the mind are elaborated upon considerably. But in observing yourself, your mind, and how it functions, you will see that when you perceive something, whatever you perceive, if you recognize it, it's already gone through the modifications of the mind. You can only recognize something if you have a memory of it, and you know what it is from the past. This is how our mind works. It checks every situation out by feeding into the past. What similar experiences have we had? What similar things have we seen or heard? And then we recognize what it is. Without memory and recognition, you wouldn't recognize anything. Like a newborn baby just looking out at the world and doesn't recognize anything. You learn to recognize. And that's how we learn to function. We learn to remember things. If the obstacle arises, the shadow side is because all of our negative memories are also there. And every time we have a new experience, we're checking it with memories from the past. What has happened to us? What could happen again? Because the mind, in its bouncing back and forth from past to future, looks into the past and projects, this is a possibility. This could be harmful. Now there's a positive side to this. When you're looking at something that can be harmful, you recognize the possibilities. It's dangerous. On the other hand, you can be projecting this all over the place. Every time you meet someone, you go, oh, this could be a thief. Maybe it's a rapist. Maybe this person's dangerous. So you're not actually feeling the person now. You're thinking back to a possibility according to your past experience and projecting that into the expectation. This is the interference that Patanjali talks about in the modifications of the mind. Learning to clear that. And Ekadasi brings up a lot of your past stuff so you can look at how you're perceiving things and how you are oftentimes projecting things into the current situation because of what happened to you in the past. So the clearing of the past is an important part. This is Ekadasi. And it's the first 3 weeks of the course as I teach it year after year. I've done 25 years of yoga teachers trainings. Now it's become a master's training. I have 53 years of actually practicing all these things. So I'm not coming from a theoretical place. I'm coming from seeing, having taken here 700 students through a teacher's training and seeing their reactions and what happens to them when they practice the Ekadasi. You can really discharge and release a lot of negativity and clear your path for a future that has much different possibilities, infinite possibilities, in fact. If you have, let's say you're practicing Hatha Yoga one morning and you have a pain somewhere over here, and you have the memory, oh, my father died of liver cancer.
Then you start thinking, I have this pain, I think it's in my liver. Maybe I have inherited a liver problem from my father. Maybe I have liver cancer. It's all coming from a past expectation. And again, as I said, we're living in a diseased society. You're taught about disease before you even start school. You're vaccinated, injected, and taught about antibiotics, none of which is necessary. So we have this negative perception on body feelings. Anything that is not pleasant, a little bit painful, we can start to worry about it. And the worry about it will activate that possibility. And the possibility can become a probability. So we can create all the diseases that we've ever heard about. And especially if we've heard about it from someone who's close to us, and we believe in inherited diseases, which was disproven back in the 60s. So clearing this past and realizing, oh, I'm feeling something, but maybe I'll just do a little bit of abdominal breathing and change the feeling. This is the yogic perspective. You have a symptom, change the symptom. Get rid of the symptom. Because if you go to a medical profession, they'll look at your books, they'll diagnose the symptom and tell you what they think you possibly have. And if you accept that you possibly have it. That applies to everything from headaches to cancer. So the yogic perspective again is take charge of your own health. Learn to feel your body, and then don't pick up some past memory of a disease and throw it into a symptom. You feel something in your knee or something here and there. Learning to recognize this, picking a negative possibility from your past and projecting it into your present or your future is a dangerous thing. In this yogic world of understanding mind over matter, we get into really seeing how we can be reprojecting the same problems over and over again. Let us say that you have diabetes. Well, my father had diabetes, so it's expected that I would have diabetes. Now you have the memory of your father had it, I have it, the doctor says I have it. Can you change the situation? Probably not, because the memory is ingrained, and every day the memory will be telling your pancreas you have diabetes. If you can forget that you have diabetes, it could disappear. There have been some brilliant psychological studies done with schizophrenics, where in one stage of a multiple personality schizophrenic, the person had, let's say he was diabetic or had all these medical problems that they could measure and say, yes, this is a real physical problem. And then a change of scene, a change of mind, and all the symptoms went away. Overnight, in a matter of hours, you completely change your mentality, your physiology changes. So this is another demonstration of mind over matter. So in yoga, you learn to look at what have you been taught about disease, for instance. What do you believe about disease? Because if you believe in cancer and you empower the mind, you can create cancer much faster than anyone else. So the empowerment of the mind is part of the development of the chakras. Then you can realize, well, clearing out the mind of its negative possibilities is an important precursor to empowerment. Because all of your negative fears and worries can become realities if you empower them. Where your consciousness goes, all the energy will go and manifest what you are expecting. This was a big stumbling block in quantum physics, where they found that the expectation of the observing scientist was actually controlling the outcome. Apply that to us. Observe yourself and realize you are the product of your own belief system, here and now. Your life is a product of your belief system. So can you change your belief system? So discharging, letting go of the past is an important step, because then you can choose a new possibility that can be incredibly positive. And according to science and quantum physics, unlimited possibilities that we have to choose from. According to Albert Einstein, imagination is much more important than knowledge. Just that statement, made by a brilliant man, we all accept that he was pretty intelligent. If imagination is more important than knowledge, but you know that you have diabetes, what if you can imagine that you don't? This is the mind. The imaging factor of the mind, our imagination, isn't just something you fantasize with. It's a powerful tool in yoga, where you use imaging to recreate something in your body, to heal something. The ability to imagine. To be able to imagine some new possibilities, you have to let go of the old stuff. We'll pause. Questions? Yeah.
Following the explanations you have given, how do you explain babies or young children getting serious diseases? For example, a children who's like 2 or 3 year old is getting diabetes.
I would look at the parents.
Epigenetic? Or
Yeah, it's epigenetic, but the belief of the parents, the worries of the parents, the influence of whatever food they're eating, it's all changeable. And with young children, I've had many children, I have many grandchildren, so I know about children. They can be completely healthy, or if you believe they can be sick, then they can be sick. So it's the belief system of the parents is influential to the children, extremely influential, at least for the first 7 years. So whatever problems the parents can imagine can immediately affect the children. So it's not the child's responsibility. But looking at ourselves as adults is where we start. How do we clean up our own act? And how do we prevent disease? Think of you're planting a garden, and in the garden you plant some nice seeds, but a bunch of other weeds come up. If you want to have the nice seeds and the fruit and the vegetables that you planted, you pull out the weeds. The garden is in your mind. The weeds have already been planted in you for decades by the sick society. And you learn to realize, you need to realize that these seeds can be activated. The weeds can grow. And if you don't pull them out by the roots, you're vulnerable. And because we're living in a society that is based on fear, disease, we really need to let that go and realize what the scientists are saying in quantum physics. We live in a world of infinite possibilities. Why are we choosing the negative possibilities? And how come they're just whirlpooling through and coming subconsciously to be projected in our lives? Because we haven't changed our minds. It's all in the mind. You're living in Thailand, a Buddhist country. Do you understand what Buddha said? Everything originates in the mind. Everything. So the brilliant people that we should be following have all been swept aside for the sake of fear, disease, consumerism. We need to let some of that stuff go and realign with the brilliance of the human species, the enlightened people. They're all saying the same thing. If you were raised as a Christian, We had stories about Jesus healing people. Do you remember the story of when he was walking through the crowd and one woman who couldn't walk was crawling up to him? She believed if she just touched his robe, she would be healed. And she did. She touched his robe and she was healed. And he said it's her belief that made her well. Whatever you believe in is your karma. And you can change your belief system into this realm of infinite possibilities. Or you can believe what you've been taught from the past. It's all outdated. We need to make a quantum leap. And we need to let go of the past, because that's like an anchor we're dragging with us. Possibilities. What do you believe in? Comments? Questions?
My suggestion would be, out of curiosity, if everyone could say their names and what got you interest in coming today to this talk. Anyone would like to start?
Yeah, I also have a question to David. It's a very empowering tool to realize that you can kind of change your whole world, right? And also to heal yourself with yoga. Buddha said that before he went that the most important thing, if you forget everything, is to be mindful. Would you summarize something that you feel is like the most important thing for humans to know if they forget everything else about the chakras and everything?
Yeah, remember to breathe. That is the key to empowerment. I said we breathe only with 10% of our lungs, and in psychological studies they say we're using 10% of our brain too. So if you increase the oxygen to your brain, you will become more powerful. And this is the danger point. If you become more powerful, then you have these negative expectations in your brain. They become more powerful. Very important to clean the mind before you empower the mind. And this is why we begin with Ekadasi as a detox system. Detoxify your brain before you start empowering it. Because as you become more powerful, you can create things very quickly, good or bad. So choose the good, the better. Yeah.
I've been doing yoga for 8 years, and since I started, I have been using Ujjayi breath a lot, and that's what's got me more aware of my breath throughout my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I'm curious, because you were saying certain breath techniques and different pranayamas and stuff, they go to different parts of the body, different areas. What does Ujjayi breath do? It expands my lungs for sure.
Yeah. It helps you remain conscious of breathing in general. It's a general technique that I wouldn't say it channels the energy in any specific direction, but it makes you more mindful of the breath, and that's a really important part.
It's helped a lot because it's like audible. I can hear it.
Yeah.
I hear myself breathing.
Yeah.
It's comforting.
It makes it more noticeable.
Nothing with Vishuddha, like the vibration here, like when you do the Ujjayi, it's nothing with this.
Yeah, it's something with that, because you're doing it, and the voice is very connected to Vishuddha. It's based on a more ancient technique that Ujjayi breathing is connected to a mental technique called Sa-Hun, which is a mind clearing technique. And the Sa is the in-breath, the Hun, which you can be doing in the throat, but you're also doing it in your mind, putting your mind on these two sounds. It's another clearing technique. And then there are these mathematical ratios I mentioned to bring the energy into Anahata or Manipura or Vishuddha. And these bring the prana not just into the physical glands and organs, but into the psychological realm of each chakra. For instance, all of your thoughts about yourself would be rooted in the first chakra. All of your social thoughts, all of your relationship thoughts are all going to be affecting the second chakra. All of your empowerment, your action, your creativity, your will to do things, to follow your direction are connected to the third chakra. And if that is squashed down because you're suppressed as a child, it's going to be dysfunctional, you're going to end up a diabetic. Fourth chakra, dealing with emotions, feelings, all kinds of feelings, layers of emotional sadness and guilt and are going to suppress the fourth chakra, suppress your immune system, and knock down your breath. So by breathing, you're unlocking that. You're expanding it, you're blowing away those things and all the negative feelings from, can be grief and sadness and memory of traumas and things. And then when you get into the fifth chakra, it's a much bigger realm where you're dealing with your belief system, the knowledge bank, the vibrational field of all your belief system, the words and ideas that you keep repeating in your head, or going into new possibilities. Infinite possibilities can be in here as ideas also. And of course the sixth chakra is where you make all the decisions, you pull the weeds out of the garden. You are constantly making your own brain chemistry. Every thought you have becomes a molecule in your head. It's going to influence the molecules in the endocrine glands first, the rest of your body next. Every thought you have. So what are you thinking? And why Ekadasi is a review of everything we're thinking, everything we've been taught. So it's a total upgrade. We need to upgrade our belief system because the world is changing. Science has already revolutionized the whole concept. And it's just as bad as the earth is flat or the earth is round. It took 100 years for civilization to accept that the world is a ball. Many people still believe it's flat. They're conscious of that. So, what do we believe? How do we change our beliefs? Any more questions? Any psychological interventions?
Yeah, I got a little psychological thought here. From a Western medicine standpoint, it's a little tricky to merge the worlds, right? From the yogic world and from the Western medical world.
Unless you step into quantum physics.
Exactly, and that requires an open mind. And this is kind of where I think it's so hard to, especially if I go back to Sweden, for example, it's so hard to have a conversation because it's like blocked from the first word, right?
Yeah.
And I just wonder what's your experience with talking to people that have a totally different understanding of the world.
I listen to them first and see where they're at, and then I come up with something that fits into their belief system and take it from there to open their belief system. So I can talk to mechanics or scientists or medical people and find somewhere to fit in a new piece of information that will make them question it a little bit. I'm actually very good at doing that.
And I guess being an example also is important.
Yeah.
No stay just in this talking. Like, okay, the person doesn't believe what you are talking, but you can show through your behavior, through your energy, through your health, through everything. So I guess it's really important also That the person, oh, actually, yeah, this guy, like use David's example. Oh, he's 73 and he is doing this kind of exercise and doing this hiking and these things, and he's feeling strong and he doesn't have anything. So yeah, maybe there is something. I guess it's more important actually to just sharing information.
Yeah, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
Be the example. Which is what I learned from my father, actually. If you want to teach people, be the example. You can only teach people by giving them a good example. Actually, what he said. Cool. When I came back from India at age 24, I told some of the people I met, oh, you know, we don't have to be diseased anymore. We can all be healthy. There's ways to just create health. And some of the people looked at me and said, oh yeah, well, you're 24 now, wait till you're 40. Okay, 40 came and went. What? So if you can feel totally healthy and vital and optimistic and through your whole life, it's a different life. And if you're plagued by this and that and worried about other things, so hey, take a deep breath. Every deep breath is a new world.
But David, that is something beyond just the belief. Let's say the example that she asked you. For example, I don't know, the parents, they have some things and they have some children. But they have a child that's super healthy and, I don't know, open mind and this and that, and the other is super sick. But they had the same education, let's say, like this. But that is something beyond just the education or just the belief. That's the spiritual process that, for example, why some people come with so many issues or many physical disease, and they come to your TTC and they, fuck, yeah, it's this, I believe you, I like to hear you, but I come back to my country every weekend back again, I try it, I'm really trying. So what you say for this situation, because listen you sounds easy, but I know for some people inside they say, yeah, maybe this guy had a good life, good health, but where I came from, it's impossible. My parents didn't give me opportunity. So how is for these people, how you can stimulate them really believe what you were suggesting, talking, and experiencing?
Their karma dictates their belief system.
Yeah.
If I can change their belief system, and usually I can to some extent, but if you go back further, before you were born, where did you come from? What was your last incarnation? That's what determines where you're born. What situation you're born into this lifetime was determined by whatever you were doing in your last lifetime. So you're born into a shit situation because you had a shitty last lifetime. You were creating the shit. If you're born into a totally abusive situation, you were the abuser. And you're coming to see the other side of the picture. It's all a question of balance, and that's karma. Understanding cause and effect. When you live both sides of the abuser and the abused, you get a better picture of, oh, well, this is how life works. I think I'm just going to follow the yama niyama and live a better lifestyle. And do good things more than bad things. Bad things are always based on greed and ego. And then again, as I said, in one lifetime, you step into a situation where you get beat up and abused, and then you keep repeating that pattern, and if you don't wake up, you can continue it into your next lifetime and be born into another shitty situation. And believe me, I know people who are born in hell, spent their life living it, and then committed suicide to get out of it. Where are they going to come back to? Did you have a question?
No, I was going to say that, you talked about the memories that we have, and I look at it as a learning, or can be a learning.
Yeah.
So it's
good.
it's the it's the fine line of choosing the learning as opposed to reliving the past, bad experiences.
Yeah, good.
So where is, like, how do you, I mean, I don't think I have that much of an issue with it, but it's, you can see that people live their past memories, and it's, how do you come away from that, how do you learn from it?
Yeah, well, that's the whole idea. Again, the idea in Ekadasi is looking at everything that's happened to you, and what did you learn from it? Why did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
And once you understand that, you don't have to repeat the lesson. But if you don't understand it, you'll keep repeating the lesson. Subconsciously, it will just come up, and the same kind of reaction happens, and you have the same situation. But if you sit back and you analyze your life, which is what we do for 11 days of looking at every stage of your life and what happened, what were reactions, what was happening to you, and what did you gain out of it? What kind of reactionary tendencies did you develop because of that? And then when you sit back and look at it, and you write it out, and we do this writing it out during Ekadasi. Write out some of the things that you remember from your past, and you'll remember more than you have because you're doing this technique. And then, why did this happen? What's the education? And part of this education is understanding that the abusers and the whatever you want to call them were abused. They are simply repeating something that happened to them without changing, without consciously intervening and deciding what they're going to do. It's just a pattern I'm just repeating. And it's also known in psychology, Western psychology, that once you reach the age of 40, it's very difficult to change. If you have not dealt with your issues previously, you probably will never will. And this, again, psychological studies based on thousands of people who have issues and trauma. Undealt with, the weeds become your garden. So, Ekadasi.
Can I do adding something what we were talking? For example, I'm a family therapist, and it's super interesting when family comes, like, I don't know, 4 people, let's say, with one common issue or subject or something's happening. It's really interesting to observe the different perspectives, the different beliefs they have, the members of the family have for this thing. And then you can see, like, when someone, for example, linking what David were talking before, when someone has this perspective, like, go beyond this matter, beyond this existence, say, oh yeah, my parents abandoned me, but it's make part of our journey, our ancestor lineage, and I can learn in so many things for this. The other child, maybe the brother, because how they did do this with us, they fucked my life, I never will be a father, I will never have a family, because I will repeat that, I'm scared about that, let's say. They came from the same situation, but they have opposite perspective. And it's changed everything. And it's so like I can say with totally sure from my experience, how in few minutes listen this family, I know this person have more health issues than the other, because it's something that this person is stuck. Is stuck on something, and everything is stuck, is a blockage that through the chakra system you understand it creates so many disease or any chemical thing. So I don't know, I just came to me this example about your question, like how to change the memories or how to reframe your perspective to the memories. And actually is what David's saying, like what you believe. It's not about the fact what happened with you, but which kind of perspective you want to choose to see this. Because the situation was the same, but each member had different history.
But understanding, getting the lesson out of life, and then you can move on. When you graduate, okay, I got this part. Now I'm going to move on to new lessons and new experiences and new worlds. new world of chakras or whatever. So, education. It's really about our education, understanding. So I hope you understand your lives. If you want to take it to a deeper understanding, come and breathe with us. All in good fun. Let the shit hit the fan together. Okay.
Guys, your first time here, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so it was what we were expecting.
More than that. So, where did it start the other days?
Yeah, the idea was start next Monday, but actually maybe you need to start Thursday or something like this because actually it's a package we created inside of a big program, 8 weeks, master program, and some people are coming from Europe. And they now, these new restrictions, maybe they will come late. So it will be nice if you can wait for them because actually
just for a few days.
Just like 3-4 days. So now I just knew about them. Oh, Joanna, maybe you're gonna be late. And so the idea was start next Monday, but you can come and practice yoga. But maybe we can start Thursday, 21st.
Yeah,
and then 3 weeks.
The breathing practice first is a good idea. Anyway. Also, the other aspect of doing this ekadasi is you get really stoned doing it. Because you're altering your brain chemistry with all of the oxygen. And in the retention techniques, you absorb oxygen and nitrogen. And if you know anything about diving, when you're absorbing nitrogen under pressure, it becomes nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide gets you really high. So this happens during this technique, and it's mindfully directed and developed this way, because under the influence of your brain chemistry, the dopamine, the endorphins you create with nitrous oxide, your consciousness rises above the mind, and your mind can then discharge more easily. You're opening the doorway between conscious and subconscious without interference, without trying to control everything. And this separation of consciousness, getting to this higher place, allows this process to happen. It's really fun. I mean, some people kind of get addicted to the high you get to. Then you should change the breathing pattern, but you can keep getting higher, which is part of yoga practice.
Can you compare it to like Kapalabhati with breath retention?
Yeah.
Exactly what
You can get to that with Kapalabhati also. The retentions, the kumbhaka, is one of the ways of, in one breath or a few, changing your brain chemistry into a higher state of consciousness. And that is a very useful tool in yoga. And also a very great tool. You're having a bad day, you're emotionally disturbed about something, you take 1 minute of breathing and a retention, and everything changes. It's all in your chemistry. Learning to control your chemistry is being in control of your life. Anything else? Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Let us know.